Thought of by many to be among the most talented to ever pick up a guitar. The height of Eddie Van Halen's fame might have been in the 80s, but his influence is still obvious today. He arrived at the age of 7 from the Netherlands, couldn't speak a word of English. Eddie and his brother Alex would form the legendary metal band, which shared both their last name and their unrelenting energy. Eddie passed away Tuesday from cancer, and he was just 65 years old. Greg Renoff is the author of Van Halen Rising, How a Southern California Backyard Party Band Saved Heavy Metal. And he's joining us this morning from Tulsa. Good to have you with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You know, the news of Eddie Van Halen's passing was a surprise to a lot of people. His condition wasn't really public until we learned that he'd passed away. How did you react when you heard the news?
You know, there have been a lot of rumors that circulate, and of course some occasional stories that would pop up about Eddie's health. But then he would appear. He went to a Tool concert with his son last fall, and he looked in fairly good health. And but the family, as you mentioned, is very private, and they've really kept Eddie's illness just as a private family thing. And so to basically hear that finality of having a man who changed rock guitar, rock music, and is really one of the true icons of our age pass away, it was a true shock, because there was not a sense that the end was imminent for Eddie. But I don't think anyone knew that except the very, very tight inner circle of the Van Halen family.
Yeah, we're just watching images of him on stage, and it's sad to think of that energy no longer being here. You wrote a book about Van Halen, so what did he mean to you?
You know, I grew up in New Jersey in the 1980s as a teenager, and like so many kids, I was just enraptured by Van Halen on MTV, and I saw them live in concert, and it changed my life. And I was never a very good guitar player. I always tried my best, but and went on to be a historian and a writer, and I felt inspired by their story about the two brothers, especially coming from Europe as immigrants and coming to America, and how hard those guys worked. It was kind of an unknown story before I wrote my book. There had been some stuff on Wikipedia or whatnot about what they call the backyard party era. But to me as a historian, I wanted to pay tribute to them for carrying out the American dream, the brothers, and pairing up with David Lee Roth, and changing the course of rock history. And the thing I thought was most inspiring in doing their book about them was that nothing was handed to those guys. There was no record company that came knocked on their door. They basically worked their ways up from playing keg parties to playing on the Sunset Strip in Hollywood, and then eventually playing in stadiums and arenas. And of course, Eddie Van Halen would go on to be the icon and titan of guitar and rock music that he is.
Some of those stories that are familiar to historians like yourself are being known for the first time. One of them was the fact that he had been an immigrant who couldn't speak English when he first got here when he was a kid. The other was that he couldn't read music, yet he was so talented.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the really cool thing about thinking about Eddie Van Halen. He had this famous quote where he basically said, rules are meant to be broken when it comes to music. If it sounds good, it is good. And what he meant by that was that, there is obviously ways of formally approaching the study of an instrument, but at some point you have to forge your own path, and that's what he really did, and that's why he's a legend, because he was the one who popularized, for example, putting the picking hand on the fretboard of the instrument using the two-handed tapping, which now is, of course, part of the rock vocabulary of every guitar player who ever wanted to do a lead solo. Everyone knows about that, and that was something where very, very concrete example of how someone might have said, why would you do that? That's not how you play guitar. You keep your pick in your right hand, or your left hand, your picking hand. And he changed the game.
Eddie Van Halen was more than talented. He was also innovative, which is something people wouldn't know necessarily about him. What was it about that combination of him being, both smart and so talented? The fact that he used to be able to play his guitar like a piano and then had a patent for something like that. Is that part of what made him so special?
Well, this is so important that you bring it up. I mean, that I would say that there are very, very many guitarists who are singular soloists. You could listen and hear as a fan of guitar and hear that that's this person playing guitar because they have a distinctive style, and that's so important. But Eddie was a guy who had a distinctive style as a soloist. He could write songs. He could write these amazing riffs that were the foundations of those songs. But as you mentioned, he was a technical innovator. He was really the first individual who popularized the idea of taking a humbucking pickup, which is basically the pickup you'd see in a Les Paul style guitar, and sticking it in a Stratocaster style guitar. and you have images here of him playing.
Hey, Greg.
What was called the shark guitar.
I hate to interrupt our time together because I love these stories that you're sharing so much. We are out of time, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Cheers.
And telling us so much about him. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching. If you like this, be sure to subscribe here.
And you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.